We'll start with NBC's Sam Brock. He's in Coral Gables, Florida for us this morning. Hi, Sam. Good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Texas and Florida both just jumped 2,600 cases in a single day. Both of their governors saying there's a common thread here. Young people testing more likely as they are heading out and venturing to new businesses that are reopening right now. All of that going on, but health experts worry that young and old are not following guidelines.
Open elbow!
Florida might be one of the country's newest coronavirus hotspots, but some folks desperate to get back to work are urging the state to allow all bars to reopen.
They're opening casinos, but we can't serve a beer.
Those calls coming days after this Hollywood, Florida social distancing fiasco. And 16 Jacksonville bar-goers enjoying a night on the town and all contracting COVID-19.
I was one of those people that like, come on, it's not that serious, and I got it.
One healthcare worker who attended the bar sang on Facebook, "I should have known better. I should have been more cautious, but alas, it is what it is." Florida is currently riding a wave of cases, more than 13,000 in a week. The governor attributing the spike to more testing. But nationwide, the numbers in many places point up. 23 states have seen a rise over the last week, more than a dozen, a surge of 25% or more. That includes 4 states in triple digits: Montana, Wyoming, Hawaii, and Alabama, up almost 150%. In Arizona, cases hitting a new all-time high, almost doubling the state's previous record. The percentage of the population with the disease there higher than some global hotspots. Sadly, disparities in care there are also pronounced. This church has been used as a testing site.
Not having a hospital in this area, you have to drive 35, 40 miles to get to the hospital.
On a day, Texas hit record hospitalizations again. Governor Greg Abbott rejected a call from 9 Texas mayors, including Houston, Dallas, and Austin, for permission to require masks.
All of us have a collective responsibility to educate the public that wearing a mask is the best thing to do. Putting people in jail, however, is the wrong approach.
Protests for Florida's governor to do the same.
It's been definitively shown that wearing masks saves lives,
leading to a similar outcome.
At the end of the day, we should be trusting people to make good decisions.
A decisive move towards safety for Nevada's governor, stopping his state's next phase of reopening.
We're not in the post-COVID time. We're in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic.
And there is some encouraging news this morning for younger people. New research out shows that children and teens are only half as likely to contract this virus as those who are 20 or older. But of course, guys, so much about the coronavirus, we're still learning. Back to you.
Absolutely, Sam. Thank you. That sets us up nicely for NBC News medical contributor Dr. Joseph Fair. Dr. Fair, good morning. It's good to see you. Let's talk about this surge in cases because, of course, when you start reopening, you know that you're going to get more cases, and we're seeing that. How do we know if this surge is something that could lead to an outbreak that would be a real concern?
Well, that's definitely what we're seeing in these states. And, the analogy or the point earlier about having more tests is going to reveal more cases, that's actually true. But what we really go by as a differentiator here with COVID-19 is how many hospitalizations are you seeing? So that would indicate new cases that you wouldn't have picked up even if you did, if you didn't have the diagnostics or whether you did or not there. So those are the people that are getting acutely ill. So that indicates it's a bigger problem than what we thought it was. And so we're seeing record hospitalizations in the states that have opened up really early, that have maybe been somewhat laxed with their earlier social distancing measures. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing record jumps in all of those states as they rush to open up.
And we remember, of course, from when this was acutely happening in March and April, the concern being that if you have that surge of cases, suddenly you're overrunning hospitals, you are straining resources. Is that the situation that's setting itself up in some of these southern and Sunbelt states, or are they better equipped to handle this surge?
I would say they're very, little better equipped than they were, say, 2 to 3 months ago, other than experience with treating patients. So, there's still going to be problems with PPE. There's still going to be a problem to have enough diagnostics. Say if there is a massive surge of cases coming in, we have many more diagnostics than we did before. But, that is accounting for the number of cases we had, not necessarily for the number of cases we will have. And so if those numbers surge, we're going to face an additional strain on the system. And right now, we really haven't seen a dip in in the cases. We saw a flattening of the curve, if you will, and maybe we shouldn't have used that term early on. We want to see a drop in the curve. So we've seen a plateau. So technically we are still in the first wave. And the second spike that we're seeing is really induced by ourselves. It's induced by us opening up early and moving on from the problem before the problem has moved on from us.
Let's talk about this hopeful sign, a drug that is in, as I understand it, every pharmacy. It's cheap, it's available, and is showing real promise in treating the most severe COVID-19 cases. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I want to say, what we have from this is a press release about the data. We haven't actually seen the data yet. But if the data holds up, it is extremely promising. Like you said, it's a cheap, readily available drug that's been in use for a very long time. It's a commonly used steroid that would dampen the immune response. A lot of what we see in the most critically ill and severe cases of COVID-19 is your own immune system overreacting to a pathogen that it's never encountered, or a virus or a bacteria that it's never encountered. So what your immune system does is basically throw every tool in its arsenal out. And on a normal kind of flu or cold, you wouldn't do that. So you get moderately ill. When you do that all together, all at the same time, you get extremely ill. And that's a lot of what we see patients kind of dying from or contributing to their death. So this drug itself dampens that immune response and allows you to kind of handle it without overreacting, per se, with your immune system.
And the researchers say they are going to put forth a more formal study, but wanted to get the information out there because of its potential implications for people who are sick right now. Dr. Fair, who has recovered from COVID-19, it's good to have you with us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Savannah. Yeah.
All right, Hoda, to you.
All right. Thank you, Savannah. Speaking of the coronavirus concerns, there are a lot of them surrounding President Trump's campaign rally in Oklahoma this weekend, an event that is expected to be one of the largest gatherings in the country since the start of the pandemic. NBC's Kristen Welker joins us from the White House with more on this. Hey, Kristen, good morning.
Hey, Hoda, good morning to you. Health officials in Oklahoma are expressing health concerns about the rally on Saturday. And now Dr. Anthony Fauci is weighing in. In a series of interviews on Tuesday, Fauci dismissed the president and administration's claims that an increase in cases in various states is only a result of more testing, and said even he would not feel comfortable attending a big campaign event. Just days before President Trump's campaign rally in Oklahoma, the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, telling the Daily Beast overnight, no, when asked if he would attend a large rally. Fauci adding, I'm in a high-risk category. Personally, I would not. Of course not. It comes after Vice President Pence wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal entitled, There Isn't a Coronavirus Second Wave. Fauci striking a different tone, telling the Journal, we're still in a first wave. Earlier during an interview on NPR, Fauci stressing the importance of social distancing, wearing masks, and trying to avoid large crowds.
It is not inevitable that we're going to have a second wave if we do what we need to do to prevent it from happening.
It's a remarkable disconnect as the president and vice president intensified their defense of Saturday's rally, which will be held at an indoor venue in Tulsa that holds about 19,000 people. Pence pressed about whether future rallies should be held outdoors.
It's all a work in progress. We've had such an overwhelming response that we're also looking at another venue.
A senior campaign official tells NBC News that while Saturday's rally will be held indoors, the campaign is also considering having the president address an overflow crowd outside. According to Oklahoma's Department of Health, the state has begun to see an increase in cases and hospitalizations over the past 2 weeks. But the state's Republican governor stresses overall cases are low, and statistics show only about 170 people are hospitalized with the virus statewide. But the president's supporters are already starting to camp out, undeterred.
It's just an effort to show support for President Trump. It gives him his tackling fuel to continue the work that he's doing for the American people.
Now, when asked for a response to Dr. Fauci's comments, a White House spokesperson defended the president's handling of the crisis, saying overnight, quote, as the president has said, the cure cannot be worse than the disease. Meanwhile, late Tuesday, a judge denied an emergency motion to stop President Trump's rally in Tulsa after local lawyers tried to block it over health concerns. The motion is expected to go all the way to the state Supreme Court. Hoda?
So, Kristen, it's an indoor rally. There's an outdoor stadium that holds more people. It's open air outside. How likely is it that that may change? They may move it to the outdoor venue.
Well, Hoda, it's a great question. At this point, it doesn't seem like the campaign is planning to move the entire event altogether to an outdoor stadium. But the vice president did say they are trying to get creative, and therefore they're looking for outdoor spaces for any overflow events or any additional activity. Now, we also know that Oklahoma's governor said he spoke to the president and vice president and asked the campaign to move to an outdoor venue. That governor is planning to meet here at the White House with the president on Thursday for a previously scheduled meeting, but undoubtedly the rally and its location will come up, Hoda.
All right, Kristen Welker for us at the White House. Kristen, thank you. Craig joins the table now with another major story out of Washington overnight. Morning.
That's right, Hoda, that's right. The Justice Department filing a lawsuit to stop the publication of a new book by John Bolton. Bolton, of course, the president's former national security advisor. NBC's Peter Alexander is following this one for us. Peter, good morning.
Hey, Craig, good morning to you. John Bolton served as the president's national security advisor here for nearly 18 months. That book that details some of his experiences behind closed doors here in the West Wing is set to be released later this week. But now the Trump administration is asking a federal judge to intervene to stop that from happening.
He was one of President Trump's top aides, regularly by his side. Now the president's taking aim at his former national security advisor, John Bolton, with the Justice Department suing to stop the release of Bolton's highly anticipated memoir, The Room Where It Happened, due out next week. The president hinted at legal action a day earlier.
If the book gets out, he's broken the law, and I would think that he would have criminal problems. I hope so.
The lawsuit claims Bolton's 500-plus page manuscript is rife with classified information that the government says would damage national security. It accuses him of failing to finish a government review of the book, a requirement for any author who holds a security clearance. Bolton's lawyer says we are reviewing the government's complaint and will respond in due course. He's denied the book includes any classified information. And in a Wall Street Journal op-ed last week, the attorney blasted the White House for a transparent attempt to use national security as a pretext to censor Mr. Bolton, saying their real concern is preventing the president from being embarrassed. The suit calls for Bolton's publisher, Simon & Schuster, to retrieve and dispose of any copies of the book already distributed. Simon & Schuster says it fully supports Bolton's First Amendment right to tell the story of his time in the White House.
Is the president lying? Yes, he is. And it's not the first time.
Bolton seen calling the president a liar in this clip from an interview with ABC News airing later this week.
I'm assuming you have not seen Donald Trump since you resigned. Have not spoken with him. Do you think you'll ever speak to him again? I doubt it.
Legal experts tell NBC News that this lawsuit is unlikely to stop publication, but it could cost Bolton royalties from book sales. Craig.
Peter, the president, of course, signing that executive order on policing in the Rose Garden yesterday amid calls nationwide for reform. What can you tell us about the specifics, and where does that plan go from here?
Yeah, that executive order, Craig, including some modest police reforms. It requires local police departments to follow higher standards on use of force and on de-escalation. To receive federal grants, they have to report police misconduct to a national database, and it puts new restrictions on chokeholds, but notably, it does not ban them outright. The president did not address the issue of racism, but before that signing ceremony in the Rose Garden, he met privately with the families of victims whose loved ones' deaths have sparked outrage and protests nationwide. Those families, I'm told, refused to join the president in the Rose Garden because, as one of them put it to me, they didn't want to be used as props in a photo op. As for where it goes now, today, Senate Republicans are expected to unveil their policing reforms, but Democrats, who have their own plan in the House, say the Republicans' effort does not go far enough. Craig?
Republican Tim Scott leading that effort there. Peter, thank you so much from the White House. Savannah?
All right, Craig, thank you. And now to some really good news this morning for tennis fans. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo has given the green light to the U.S. Open to go on as planned. It's supposed to start at the end of August. Of course, no spectators will be allowed at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in Queens. But, of course, you can still obsessively watch the Grand Slam tournament on TV. if you're really into tennis.
Yeah.
Right,
like,
guys?
Like somebody we know. By the way, I could actually feel you smiling while you were reading that. You could feel it coming through. All right.
Even without Raj, because I would say Federer is out for the rest of the year.
Oh, my gosh, that's right.
Excited.
All right. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
All right. Here's something else that's good. Yeah. Mr. Roker checking out the weather. Hey, Al.
Hey, good morning, guys. And we start the day off. We're looking at a lot of rain throughout decent parts of the country, maybe even some snow in the intermountain regions. We've got this mid-Atlantic area that we're going to be looking at heavy rain, and heavy rain developing down in Florida later today. This eastern low will drift toward the north. That'll bring rain up into the northeast. Cold front will move across the plains and the Rockies, and as it does, it's going to bring heavy rain for Florida, also Minnesota, south to Kansas. We're looking for heavy showers and thunderstorms continuing, and then as we move on into Friday, we expect more activity. In fact, look at the rainfall. Heavy rain stretching from Minneapolis all the way down to Wichita Falls. Heavy rain back through the mid-Atlantic states. And the heaviest rain as we move on into Friday going to be down in central and southern Florida with up to 5 inches or more. Could be flooding down in that region as we head toward the weekend.